Today we've got questions on Henry Kissinger, the liturgical calendar, a book lightning round, and is a secret to keeping and celebrating all things of autumn and winter hidden on the 13th floor of the Tumbler House Tower. Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu, now being broadcast and podcast on the Crusade Channel. Talk radio the way it should be at crusadechannel.com. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumbler House, here with a inchoate Charles Coulombe.
Inchoate?
Inchoate.
So I'm just sort of this nebulous, never really realized kind of presence.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So I'm just sort of like bobbing around in the nether sphere, just sort of...
Not fully formed, not reaching your full potential?
Okay. I was accused of that when I was in third grade. No, well, all right, fine. It's okay by you, it's okay by me, I guess. But, you know, being inchoate does have its advantages.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, you're not tied to one place geographically.
That's true. Okay.
Surely some revelation is at hand.
Where are you going with this?
Where am I going? I'm glad you asked that question. I'm going home.
Oh.
Far across the sea. To the land of lederhosen and schlagobers and coffee. To the land of pastries. To the land of the old empire, where pictures of Franz Josef and his mutton chops are everywhere. And darling Sissi, that's where I'm going. To Österreich. To Österreich-Ungarn. To the Heilige Römisches Reich. That's where I'm going.
Why? Because you hate us? You just stayed a month and then,
yeah, pretty much.
Too bad, so sad. I'm out of here.
Pretty much. Too bad, so sad. I'm out of here. Bye-bye. No, it's not. That's not why. I'm not leaving. It's not like I'm deserting a sinking ship. I'm leaving. Look, the only reasons I'm leaving are because of the declining political condition, the declining economic condition, the collapse of the culture, and the fact that everything's falling apart. But I'm not fleeing. I'm advancing to the rear.
You're advancing to the rear. That's actually contradictory.
All right, never mind what I said. We'll try this another way. You know how everyone's saying we have to decolonize?
Okay.
You know, all the little persons in academia are all about decolonizing. You've heard about this?
Kind of.
Well, how more decolonial can you get? How more decolonizing can you get as a descendant of settler colonists than to pick up roots and go back to the mother continent?
That's actually pretty fair.
Yeah. I should have a string of liberal academics kissing my feet as we speak. Oh, gee, you're showing us the way. Like that.
That's actually, I'm kind of shocked. Yeah, so we should all retrace and we can go back to the motherland.
We should all go back to the motherland. Except for the academics. They should stay here and learn indigenous languages and be eaten.
Okay.
You ready to go home?
I have been wanting to go home for a while now, actually. But, yeah.
You know what it is? It's like going to Eldamar.
What is that?
Eldamar beyond the seas, you know, Middle Earth.
Oh.
I'm seeking the Grey Havens.
That's right.
Just goodbye, Middle Earth. Except, of course, Europe has its own problems. But really, ladies and gentlemen, that's not true either. I'm not giving up my home here in California. I'll probably be back, possibly for a little while, as early as February. So this is not a permanent move.
Okay.
But we had to, throw a little scare into academia. Because those of you who are in college, you might consider, if you really don't care about being flunked, and grades don't mean anything to you, you might very well ask when a professor's snout opens and out comes the word decolonization. Professor, why don't you go back home? Because as long as you're here, you are an artifact of empire.
Ooh.
Yes. So, Professor, your little rear end needs to go home.
That is so good. An artifact of empire.
An
I'm writing
artifact
that
of empire.
down, if only for personal use.
No, I mean, we're all artifacts of empire. It's just that some of us are not Marxists. And if you're an artifact of empire, there are two ways you can deal with that.
Okay.
You can be grateful for the history that has placed you where you are, or you can shut up and go home. Or it's like some of us, you can try to do both at once, but that's not that easy. Take it from me.
You can't whine about it?
Oh, no. Whining is not permitted on that level, especially not from Marxist academics who are getting paid. See, when you're being paid to talk crap, no mercy.
No mercy by who?
Not by me, anyway. Well, no, I mean, look. You know, all my life, well, not all my life, but all my adult life, both my brother and myself have had a fascination with content-free verbiage, babbling out from media, academics, government, and all that. And for years, I wondered at the fascination, because, you know, both he and I love to imitate it, you know, and all that, especially at parties. New Age people, too. They have their own variety. So I was thinking about one day, and I thought, what is this fascination with the sort of verbal garbage that constantly pours out into the mental mindset? You know what it is?
What?
Envy. On our part, I mean, my brothers and mine. Because, see, think about it. He and I are both in professions where we have to justify every bloody thing we say. I cannot, seriously speaking, just come up with garbage like, oh, I don't know, Governor Newsom in a debate and just babble. I have to be able to somehow back up any assertion I make. That's a lot of work. And I look at these people, they go, and they get paid for it. So my response to you is, no, I have no mercy. They're getting paid being as brainless as I would like to be.
Yeah, I can see that.
Why should I have to put one thought in front of another when the people can run states and nations just babbling pointlessly?
Because you're in the wrong business. Well, actually, I don't know
Got
if
me
that's
there.
true. I don't know if that's true, because you're just in the wrong part of the business. There's a lot of writers who write unintelligibly that make bank.
That's for sure. Gosh, James Joyce, call your office. That's true. Now, how do you get into that racket?
I don't know.
See, I don't think it was ever actually an option for me. Should I have? You think when I was in high school, I should have sought out my guidance counselor? You know, I like writing, but how do I get into writing where, like, you don't have to have any brains or mean anything?
I forgot this reminds me of A Man for All Seasons, and one of my favorite lines from him where Thomas More says, if virtue was profitable, then we'd all be virtuous just on basic common sense.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not profitable.
Well, there's that, and of course, you know, my favorite line from Man for All Citizens, actually, and not from the movie, but from both the play and the TV version.
What, the end about dying in your bed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, see, because that guy is Everyman.
Yeah.
And he's sly. You notice he's malevolent.
Yeah.
All through the play, he's not an active evildoer like Henry and his kings, but he's nasty and he's sly, and he's all of us. He's Everyman.
Yeah.
and his, at the very end, so and so was executed, so and so was murdered, so and so died on campaign, blah 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 blah. Oh, me? Oh, well, I died in my bed, as I hope shall all of you. And that is the villainy of the great mediocre.
It's very true.
Well, here's to mediocrity and the women who love it.
Yeah.
Here's to mediocrity and all who sail upon her. Here's to mediocrity and its patron saint, Salieri.
Salieri?
Well, he in the movie Amadeus, he declares himself to be the patron saint of the mediocre.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mediocrity is everywhere. I absolve you. I absolve you. He could have gotten together with the steward in Man for All Seasons, There, it's all right. You're actually virtuous.
Oh, man.
But on a happier note, though, we have, but we will resume next week with our split personality. Once again, I'll be cheesed out of my glazed donut. Not that we're bitter. I got one this morning, sort of.
He's been feasting while he's over here. I know it's really rough going to restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. Everyone, don't get me started.
I have people I have to meet.
Prima donna over here to the nth degree, honestly.
Ladies and gentlemen, look, I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger wandering through this land of woe. What am I supposed to do? I've got friends. I had lunch at Union Station 2 days ago with a friend of mine I hadn't seen in 20 years.
Wow, well, that's nice. Great.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was quite a pleasant reunion. And then I had to go on to dinner. And I'm going to waddle off the plane, I'm going to tell
you. Knowing your schedule today, I don't even know how you're going to get through today.
Me neither. But, it's going to take me a week to recover from this vacation.
Only a week?
Maybe longer. Yeah. But Christmas is coming. And I don't want you to feel jealous in the slightest about the Advent markets and the glue vine on every corner and the Christmas choruses and the incredible high masses with its instrumental high masses for Christmas. And I don't want you to feel jealous about all that, about Christmas and New Year's in Vienna. I don't want you to feel. I want you to think of the Crystal Cathedral and its greatness. Remember the days of the glory of Christmas. And I want you to think of our own cathedral. Forget the Stephansdom. Think of our own cathedral here in L.A., radiating its beauty, just pouring out of every crack. That's what I want you to focus on. I don't want you to think that I'm going to be out there tossing back the glue vine and just really, really enjoying myself, because I will be, but it'll be a penance of a sort.
Wow, that was thick. That was really.
Well,
that was bad, Charles.
Yeah, I try to help.
Gosh.
Well, no, I mean, it will. To be honest with you, it's tough being away from friends and family at Christmas. So this Christmas I'll be with other friends. Well, it's true. What do you want me to say?
Oh.
And all right. Let me try to make this better. Can I do that?
You could try, yeah.
Okay. It's not just because the food is so good.
Okay.
And it's not just because the wine and the coffee and everything else is so tremendous. Those aren't the only reasons.
Is this making it better? Is this making it better?
I hope so. I'm trying. But someone has to be willing to stand up and say to the Central Europeans, you got some really great stuff here.
That actually is kind of true.
Yeah, kind of. And who's it going to be? Some schmo from Dusseldorf who doesn't know Central Europe? No. You need an Angelino from New York, or as somebody once described me, a French Canadian Knickerbocker from Hollywood living in Austria. That's what you need.
Well, you've certainly found a good racket. I'll say that.
Racket.
Writing didn't work out as well as intended in a certain sense. So now we got the Yankee over in Budapest or
Whoa. Firstly, I'll be writing more for the European Conservative. Crisis, Catholicism.org, 1 Peter 5. Continue to write for them. I've got I just finished the book on Empress Zita, which is going to be coming out from TAM.
Okay.
And I am now starting in earnest on the book for Angelico, on the writings of the Archduke Otto about America.
All right.
So it's not going to all be strudel and pretzels, smart guy.
Okay.
Just some.
You've got a couple rackets going on at the same time.
Rackets!
Yeah.
For a man who sits at the top of this oligarchic tower.
I'm complimenting you. I mean, we like hustle here at the Tumbler House Tower.
Yeah, I know that.
That's why you're sitting next to me right now.
Well, it's true. Now, let me ask you, are they going to close down the old studio again? Until next time, or what?
It's being... We put it to different use, obviously, when, we have limited space, kind of. So we're gonna be making good use of it. Don't
Storage for the gift shop? I was wondering because I noticed they're working on opening a direct drop-off point there.
Yeah, there's some logistics we need to figure out.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So,
well, it's been though. All kidding aside, it has been a great time being back here, and I'd be lying if I said that I'm not going to miss an awful lot here. But time passes, and I'll be back sooner or later.
Yeah.
And possibly permanently. Who knows? Everything is up for grabs at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. So remember, if you've got any real big permanent gigs that are very expensive ones with lots of salary directly paid to me. If you've got those kinds of things, big, just let me know privately.
I'm hurt.
Well, about what?
I'm hurt that you don't trust us
what do you say?
To safeguard your correspondence, the gifts that are making their way to you.
All right, let me ask you, why is it none of the Christmas cards that came to me from Cater had any of the listed gifts in them?
Look, Charles, who knows what happens before it gets to us at the tower, okay? Don't do U.S. Postal Service, guys. I mean, get insurance, get that covered.
When a shaykh says, "Dear Mr. Coulombe, you've done more to help me understand Islam than any one of my own imams, I enclose 40,000 dinars in Thanksgiving." And you run through the card, and they're in a single dinar, let alone 40,000. What am I supposed to think?
I can't account for that. I don't know. There's a lot of strange things happening. But we're doing our best. I don't know. You don't trust us.
I do. Just not with dinars.
All right, fine. We're moving on. I get it. I can take a hint.
You know what yesterday was?
A Feast of Immaculate Conception.
Correct. Patronal feast of which country?
United States.
That's right. Our version of St. Patrick's Day. Did you go out to an American bar yesterday and drink and sing American songs with a bunch of other expatriates?
I wish.
Once a year American? Take me out to the ball game. What?
All right.
I guess I'm getting. Am I getting marked down?
Yes, you're getting written up here. All right.
Oh well. All right. But beyond that, no. So we'll be doing our usual run of Christmas and New Year's shows, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, life returns.
All right. We have one comment from Nicholas who says you need to have a special merchandise release for the 300th episode that is a fly swatter, since the gift shop has them, but branded with the words Ultra Vires, Bad Touch. Ooh, a reference, an old school reference to one of Charles's great moments on the show.
Oh yes, Ultra Vires. The word should be branded on every senior hierarch's forehead.
All right. For book of the week, we actually have a submission by Will, who has a book lightning round for you.
Oh, okay.
He says, "Hi, will you have Charles say the best book written on each of these historical events and topics in English?"
Had to spoil it, didn't you? Fine. All right.
All right. Fall of the Roman Empire.
Bellic, Europe and the Faith.
Ooh, available at tomerhouse.com. All right. The Norman Conquest.
You know what? I'll give you Bellic again on History of England.
History of England. Wow, I've never heard of that one. Okay. See if I can add that to the bookstore. Okay. War of the Roses.
Oh, heavens. I think the name of the book, I can't remember the author, I think it's called The Kingmaker, and it's about the nobleman who was just that. It was the power behind several thrones until he backed the wrong side, and that was the end of him. But that's a pretty good history of the War of the Roses, The Kingmaker.
Who was the Kingmaker?
God, I can't think of his name. Well, you know what? Watch this, ladies and gentlemen.
You're cheating.
I'm cheating.
So he was some diplomat or something?
No, he was a major nobleman whose support was necessary to be king. Well, I can't find what I want. So we'll go with Anthony Goodman, Wars of the Roses.
Okay, Anthony Goodman, The Wars of the Roses. The Protestant Reformation.
Oh, that's easy enough. Go back to Bellic.
Okay.
No,
what, characters of the Reformation?
Characters of the Reformation. Yeah.
Okay. The English Civil War.
Gosh, a lot of Gibbons that in that regard. The name A Coffin for King Charles is the third volume. It's a trilogy on the English Civil War. The Coffin for King Charles is the penultimate book, as you can guess. It was the last book, rather. But I can't think of the authors. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you never get to enjoy losing your memory from inside. Coffin for King Wedgwood, C.V. Wedgwood. She wrote a trilogy on the English Civil War.
C.V.?
Yeah, it's a she, though.
Okay.
C.V. Wedgwood.
Okay. The Jacobite Wars.
Sir Charles Petrie, The Jacobite Movement.
American Revolution.
The Good Americans by Wallace Brown.
Napoleonic Wars.
The Age of Napoleon by, I can't remember the author, but it's Horizon Books.
American Civil War.
The American Heritage Book of the Civil War.
World War One.
Fall of Eagles.
World War Two.
That is a hard one. Well, you know what? I'd go with Churchill's history of the Second World War.
Surprising. Surprising coming from you. You're not exactly a fan.
No, but I have read it and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Time for the questions.
Ooh, here we go.
All right, first question is from me. I'm actually really surprised that we've done this show for this many years and we haven't taken a question on this. So obviously Henry Kissinger died last week. Everyone's talking about him. I haven't listened to all of the talk online. So I wanted to get your opinion on Henry Kissinger, his accomplishments, his failures, controversies, and legacy.
Well, honestly, he outlived his legacy because his legacy was Nixon's foreign policy. And by the time he died, everything he'd accomplished was completely set aside.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that he accomplished a certain, like, détente with the Soviet Union, but there is no Soviet Union. The accords in Indochina, but the Reds have taken over completely and, still have all of Vietnam. He made efforts of different kinds that had some fruit in the Near East, and that's all gone. So, I mean, he was a man who outlived all of his own achievements.
So, I mean, was it good for the time at least? I mean, is it a good, temporary fix? I mean, is he a force of good or bad in terms of diplomacy?
Mixed. I mean,
that seemed to be the consensus online. I think I heard from what the tiny bit I heard, a lot of people were complaining what he did in South America.
Yeah.
I think Argentina.
Yes, and again, the problem is he outlived his own time, and nothing he did lasted, for good or for ill.
Well, what diplomat can say that in history?
Very few.
Yeah, so...
No, it's a fair question, and that's why we generally don't think of great diplomats as great men, unless they bring about a really lasting peace, which rarely happens.
Okay.
I mean, Kissinger was... Understanding Kissinger, you might say, is essential to understanding the United States of the 70s and 80s. But it's a very brief period. Knowing Kissinger today is irrelevant to where we are today. I mean, look, if you had played a huge role at the Congress of Versailles, at the Versailles Conference in 1918, and you lived until 1962, which was far from impossible,
Okay, well, let me state it a different way then. If you were faced with the problems that Henry Kissinger was facing, and you sought diplomatic solutions, would you do what he did?
No, I wouldn't have. I mean, frankly...
What wouldn't you have done?
I would not have pursued any kind of détente with any communist power.
What exactly is a détente? Some sort of
coexistence.
yeah.
I would have done what Reagan did. I mean, if the Cold War had ended not in 1981, but in 1971, uh, that is, I said, did I say 81? I'm sorry, 1989. But if it had ended in 1979 or in 1975, more likely, how many more lives would have been saved? Impossible to tell. Tons more. See, I'm a little sensitive on this spot because living where I live in Central Europe, I know a lot of people who grew up under communism. If that system had fallen in my boyhood, and it could have, any one of our presidents, at least from Eisenhower on, could have done what Reagan did.
Okay.
They chose not to.
I see. So this sort of coexistence with such evil is a no-no.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and the Soviet Union was in the end shown up to be a paper tiger. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean if we had gone to open war with it, it couldn't have done a lot of damage. It sure as hell could have. But if rather than doing that, we had a president like Reagan committed to the end of the Soviet Union, then it would have happened a lot sooner. And innumerable lives would have been saved, innumerable more would not have been blighted. You know, and the outcomes in Vietnam would have been totally different. For that matter, things being what they were at the time, the Chinese communist regime might not have survived.
Wow.
Because you see, that regime has been made wealthy through its trade with America and the West. That was not the case before 1979. The opening to China in 72 opened the way for Mao Zedong and his regime to become a great world power despite being evil. And that was done with American assistance and American aid, and that was Henry Kissinger. So, you know, I don't believe, sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to coexist with evil because the alternative is much worse. But the fact is, you know, Truman with his, not consolidation, with his containment policy, Eisenhower with his alliances policy, Kennedy, LBJ, Nixon, and I guess you would have to count Carter and Ford in that company. They all unconsciously, I hope, conspired to give communism a lease on life. And that was wrong. That was wrong. I mean, why not with the Nazis? You know?
Surprising in that sense.
Well, I mean, it was how I felt at the time about Kissinger when I was a teenager. Everyone was going on about what a great statesman he was. And I mean, again, if what you're looking for is preservation of the status quo, which is certainly the most peaceful thing you can do, the problem is that that status quo included the grinding down of whole populations under the communist boot. It included the Gulag Archipelago. It included compromising with evil.
It almost seems like sort of like a path of least resistance a little bit.
Well, it was, and that's what the diplomat is supposed to do. But see, that's the difference between a diplomat and a statesman. A statesman has, all right, what are the best interests of the country? How do we get from here to there? The diplomat is, well, you know, and mind you, most often diplomats are more useful than statesmen, simply because if you take the history of the world as a whole, there haven't been that many abjectly evil regimes.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
But the communist regime was one such, the Nazis were another. And the failure to accept them for what they were was a terrible mistake.
What happened down in South America with him that people are critical about him?
Well, basically, in South America, we acted to support regimes, right, quote unquote, right wing regimes that acted to prevent Soviet growth. Because if we were not going to roll back the Soviet menace, we were not going to see it take over South America. And people forget, Salvador Allende was a communist. That if he had not been deposed, Chile would have gone the way of Cuba. You know, that's what was happening. The reason why General Pinochet moved when he did was that Allende had decided to replace the army with the People's Militia. Well, guess what? Once that had happened, goodbye Chile. See, people forget, you see, or they don't want to remember, especially academics, naturally, who are Marxists.
So concretely, what happened and how did the United States get involved? So,
well, what happened was that the CIA in a number of different countries, where there were either regimes that favored the Soviets or groups that looked as though they were going to come to power that favored the Soviets, American influence and so on was brought to bear, and they were either overthrown or stopped. That's what happened.
and Kissinger's credited with that policy.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, today they wouldn't call it credit, but you know.
Okay. So it sounds like as a diplomat, he did what diplomats do.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
But then as a statesman, he has failed.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. What do we got? We got a question from Xenix, who says, "Ahoy to the great connoisseurs of carpe de baignoire." Bathroom carp, I guess in French. Interestingly enough, bathtub carp is also seen in Croatia. So that leaves us with three main possible theories. That it is a Central European phenomenon, that it is a holdover of the White Croatian Principality, or the Magyars' hands are all over it. All right, 2 questions for Charles this time. Number 1, is the secret to keeping and celebrating all things of autumn and winter, Halloween, All Souls, Thanksgiving, Advent, Christmas, hidden on the 13th floor of the Tumbler House Tower?
Well, actually, I can speak to that quite forthrightly, because having gone up to the tower, I saw. Oh, so what we're talking about?
The secret to keeping and celebrating all things is locked away in the 13th floor.
Oh, yeah, the floor. Yeah, I mean, I went up there and I'm sorry, what were we talking about again?
The 13th floor?
What about?
It has things that are. He's having secrets that keep and relating to keeping and celebrating all things autumn and winter.
Well, last time I went up to the 13th floor, the doors opened and I'm sorry, what were we talking about again?
There's a question from Xenix who says, why did Venice have this dual nature of simultaneously being a great Catholic city devoted to St. Mark and fighting the Ottoman scourge on the one hand, yet on the other, a usurious hive of scum and villainy that hijacked a crusade to further its ends of dominion over Catholic Croats on the eastern Adriatic? That is to say, why was Venice the Mrs. Bates of medieval republics? Good one.
Well, it is, and the answer is, to a great degree, because of its position. Venice was an extremely, most maritime powers was extremely vulnerable to land attack, and so struggled constantly throughout its history to basically mobilize whatever it could from beyond the seas in defense of the motherland. And it was successful at that for a very long time. It only ceased to be when Napoleon conquered it.
Hmm.
Uh,
How do you conquer Venice?
well,
You surround it with fleets? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And they surrendered.
Wow.
So they also, gave up a number of their territories on the mainland. And Austria got Dalmatia and Istria and all that, and Venice itself for a while. So.
All right. Will says, hi. Why was the liturgical calendar revised in 1969?
To sow confusion and annoyance. And you'll notice this was done before the new Mass was brought in. It was a prequel. I remember it being very annoying at the time.
What would the people who did it say is the reason?
Well, it would say that the calendar had become too full of saints to whom there was very little devotion. They had better dates for some of them. See, and then some of them they denied were saints at all.
What?
Like St. Christopher. They said, oh, he's mythical, never existed. Kind of like their own faith.
Who said that?
Well, I can't give you names in particular.
I mean, is he not on the new calendar?
He is again, because of John Paul II.
I'm sorry. I just feel like something like that has to be ruled on by the Pope. If you're going to do that, right? I mean, the Pope signs off on that,
In the early 60s, the Congregation of Saints did their first go-around of this with St. Philomena, whose life was given us after the discovery of her catacomb in the 1850s. Her life was told us by a mystic. So Pius IX, to prove the cultus, it became very popular. The Curé d'Ars answered many, 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 many miraculous prayers through her intercession. And then in the early 60s, the Congregation for Saints decided, no, she's not really a saint. So Cardinal McIntyre, our Archbishop here, refused to accept that. He just, no, you're wrong. And I myself, I saw not the original in Rome, but I saw a copy of her here in L.A. And, well, I wrote a paper for a school class about St. Philomena. And I said, given the number of miracles that even saints have achieved through her intercession, if she doesn't exist, someone's taking her calls. That was how I ended it. So, I don't get me started.
I'm just a little disconcerted. So this was a congregation that has this sort of...
Yeah. And as I say, when they approached Cardinal McIntyre about changing the name of St. Philomena in Carson, he refused, point blank. He said he had more faith in the opinion of the Curé d'Ars than in Roman bureaucrats.
Do you feel the Pope bears some responsibility for that?
Well, I mean, he could have stopped it if he wanted it to, on the one hand. On the other hand, he didn't order it directly. So it's one of those weird Twilight things.
Okay, so they took St. Philomena off and St. Christopher off, but John Paul II got us back. right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, so was that the main things? Is take off some of these saints, and these saints are not
And make
saints?
space.
Make space. I know. I think one of your big pet peeves was the feast for Peter in chains,
Yeah.
which they
Which they
axed
got rid
that.
of. Well, see, it didn't happen all at once. Uh, Pius XII began playing with the calendar after 55. John the 23rd decided that he didn't want any more, in his mind, redundant feasts. So, like, there had two feasts of St. Michael the Archangel, one of them goes. Two feasts of the Holy Cross, one of them goes, and so on. So if you got to keep those things, it was because they were of particular interest to your order or diocese.
Okay. Well, were there 3 feasts of Saint Peter? Or just
St.
2?
Peter and Paul,
Oh yeah.
St. Peter and James, I think just 2.
Okay. Okay. Uh. Final question today is from Kyle, who says, "I'd like to ask Charles for his opinion why America succeeded so well in spite of being a republic and founded Freemasonry and Protestantism. In light of the writings of Benjamin Franklin, Patrick Henry, and Thomas Jefferson, it was hoped that self-rule could be achieved, provided the majority or plurality of its people were moral, courageous, selfless, and charitable. The reason we're failing now is because we've rejected Christianity and rejected morals and depend on others and on government and became selfish and apathetic. Or could it be that Protestantism's moral relevance in making everyone their own pope and interpret the Bible like Google Translate does created problems, the problems we have? Or maybe we have too much freedom. Or maybe it did work the way it was intended when it did what was intended. What is Charles's view of how the House of Cards came down? And why are there no Catholic monarchies that enjoyed our level of prosperity and technological advancement during our nation's zenith if Catholic monarchy is better? Great question.
It is. I'll answer the second part first. And that is that from the time the United States had the ability to interfere with Catholic monarchy, she did. The leaders did, anyway. Think of the Spanish-American War. Think of our dealings with Maximilian in Mexico. Whenever we could back an anti-Catholic regime, we did, with all the means at our disposal. And we were very good at it. The summit of this achievement, of course, was Woodrow Wilson in 1918, when we were responsible for the ruin of a saint. So, power to the people, the right people. As far as the rest of it goes, Catholic monarchies certainly did achieve our level. They didn't achieve our level of technology because we managed to kill them before they lived into the current moment. But if you compare where Austria-Hungary was to the United States in 1880, she compared pretty well. It's true that there were a lot more economic offerings for the poor industrial worker. He could get paid a lot more than he could as a peasant, although, of course, he'd have to work from sunrise to sunset, and if he got sick, he'd lose his job and die. So, there was some minor setbacks.
Yeah.
But you see that everywhere. I mean, to this day in the third world, people emigrate to these shanty towns on the edges of major cities, where their lifestyle is much worse than it would be if they stayed back on the farm.
Mm.
But you can't have everything. People got to do what they're going to do. As far as the first part of the question goes, the founding fathers were faced with a problem. There were two things that had kept the colonial societies on an even keel before the revolution. One was their shared obedience and devotion to the king. The other was a The other was how do you call it? Moral consensus. Protestants, Catholics, Jews all thought the same things were right and wrong. All right. You have the revolution. Men like Noah Webster very purposefully created the religion of the country to replace the image of the king. And they did quite well at it. Quite well indeed. There was only that little problem with the Civil War. More people dying in that than any other of our wars put together, but never mind. Apart from that major lapse and the racial issue and the Indians, the states did pretty well up until World War I. Then after World War I, of course, we became a superpower. We affected everything we could get our fingers on. And then in the 60s, the moral consensus we were dependent on died. And from that time on, the religion of the country has begun to die. Until now, when at the Mount Rushmore speech in January. Trump did Mount Rushmore speech in January of 2020 or 2019. Trump gave a speech which got his base excited, got his opponents excited, but really was boilerplate.
Yeah,
and could have been said by any politician of either party when I was a boy.
Yeah.
But now that religion is strictly the stronghold of the Republican Party. So, the other thing to bear in mind is that the United States really do not owe their greatness to their governmental institutions, but to the fact that the U.S. was a wonderland of minerals, of natural resources, just an amazing place. So that, I think, is where you'll find the reason for success, and not in her institutions. Although the reason for her decline is certainly in those institutions.
Interesting. I see. All right. Okay. I guess that will do it.
Well, that's it for us from here. But next week you will see us in beautiful Thurmau, Österreich.
Him, not me. Because I love America.
Are you one of those people who gave me guff about being an expatriate?
No.
Good. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing. Land where our fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountain side, even the St. Gabriel's, let freedom ring. Our fathers' God to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You were going to say amen.
Almost.
If it's Monday?
It's off the menu.
Yeah, what about the soda you may save?
It may be your own.
What if you're in Kuwait?
Then you're all over the place.
Hey, if I'm in Kuwait, I'm actually not going to be any more or less there than I am here now.
That's too metaphysical, Charles. I don't know. I don't like it.
Okay, you're the boss.
See you next time, everyone.